All right, we're live, right?
Yep.
Blake?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
we are.
live. We are
Okay.
live.
All right, I'm going to share this screen and we're going to go through the compensation plan tonight. It's coming up on the 22nd. We've got 8 days before the end of the month, and it's always good. There's a lot of new people, and Blake, there's so much money now in just in retailing product and selling in Facebook that people forget that the real money is in, and the freedom is in this compensation plan and building a big team. And so it's so important to do this over and over again and really become proficient at this, like you've become. I mean, I know you love the numbers, right?
Right, yeah, and I think that really looking at the compensation plan, and as we go through it tonight, you'll go through the three different ways that we get paid in the presentation. And I think really the main thing that's different with social selling isn't so much, how everything works as an executive and how everything works as a leader of executives, which is really where all the money is. It's really what's changed is the qualification to become an executive and how that looks, versus kind of the BS way. Which was, buy a kit, do your LOI by buying your own stock of product. Now it's more so get started for free, market yourself to your social media group and social media following and distribute product that way and file your LOI as a natural kind of process of moving product through people. And the fun thing about that and the positive side of that is that you do make a lot of money, like you're saying, you make money retailing product, and people get caught up in that because it's the instant money. The negative thing about that is, and kind of what Nathan I think alluded to on our call a couple of days ago, is that the old way had some positives. It had some positives saying that you could kind of LOI faster. You could get people progressing through the compensation plan, sometimes a little bit differently, not faster, but differently, kind of with their eye on the long term money from the beginning. And some people get that instant money and it distracts them from the long term play.
Really good, Blake. That's a really good analysis of it, and you've really added so much to everybody on our team. Helping us understand the analytic and every day commenting on everybody's posts and the teamwork to really get that social selling going is so big. And so your perspective is so good because you're living it. You're living this right now, and you're seeing your people progress and seeing the friction points and maybe the not friction points, the smoother part of this. And so I'm going to kind of roll through here and have you kind of chime in on each piece. So we get paid based on our title, and everybody is a distributor. So I'm a team elite executive distributor, and what that means is that I get all three of those bonuses. So as a distributor, I have the right to distribute, team elite executive distributor, so a leader, a titled leader. So everybody starts at the front end and they're able to buy product at wholesale. And in this case, we don't even buy product anymore. It's become so different. You don't really hold inventory. And I got to say, if you're holding inventory, you're going to sell a lot more toothpaste. Today, I had to be out running around, and I sold 6 tubes of toothpaste today just because I'm excited about it. And everybody that comes in contact with me, I'm going to talk about it. And I have paste on me. I have whitening toothpaste on me, and I'm able to just take a 20, or give them my payment link. And it's just, there couldn't be anything more natural or easier because you're going to be talking about what you're doing. So don't forget that there's a big opportunity, not just in social selling. So we're going to buy product at wholesale. We're going to mark it up to retail. We're going to keep the difference. So distributors make hundreds of dollars a month. Nobody's going to handle a lot of product here. We're all going to sell social selling products in their social media. We're going to handle, you know, $600-700 a month worth of product. We're going to mark that up to $1,000-1,200. We're going to keep the difference. In most cases, you're going to collect that money up front. And it is good to have, 10 tubes or something in your car. I've always got some on me, and it's just, I've recruited a lot of people by doing that. But we really like it because it's free to sign up, it's free to be a distributor. Most people have sales before they even start, which is the way I like to do it. And so this actually says 30% retail, and that's kind of a broad stroke. It's kind of on all the products, even the more expensive products, the markups aren't as high. In the case of whitening paste, it's really high. It's nearly 100%. And then the other thing that distributors can do is they can make money on their first level. Now, I call this a connecting bonus. This is where you talk directly to somebody and they are connected to your ID. When you connect somebody to the company and they buy a product at wholesale, you're going to make a 5% override. So that's the two things you can do as a distributor. So there you are. You're going to use some products. I like to talk about Vitality. It's an unbelievable product. The whitening paste, of course. There's products that you're going to use in your family. I recommend that. I recommend that you go through your house and buy products from yourself. You've gotten yourself in business, and you want to do that. Now, if you're just a social seller, that's okay too. But if you're going to navigate this compensation plan and really get yourself to the big money, then you're going to want to try some other products. You're going to want to start to work on before and after pictures with other stuff, with lip plumping and Soul Solution and eyelash and other products that you're going to want to experiment with and then talk about. You're learning the 3-post process, the before and after, the last call, and then the story from those, which is the OMG post. You're learning that cycle so that you can learn to be a social media seller. This isn't as much about the paste as it is the process. And we're lucky that we have this unbelievable product that's being sucked into a vacuum, literally, in the market, where people hate the strips and they hate the bleach and they don't want to pay for the laser and they don't want to pay for veneers. And we have a low cost solution that works really great in the paste, and it's a super place to learn how to use social media to sell products. So it's almost like training wheels. It's so easy, it's almost not fair. And it gives you this runway that if you're, really paying attention, it's not about the paste. It's about becoming a social media expert and becoming a social media marketer. So be experimenting with other products. You're going to connect people. In this case, we're going to call it A, B, and C. Normally, I would be on my game and I'd name those 3 people. Blake, give us some gender neutral names for A, B, and C. Charlie, we'll use Charlie.
Yeah, we got Albert, Bert, and Charlie.
Albert's not very gender neutral.
Well, there's Charlie, I guess, right? I guess it can be.
Exactly. So that'd be, they're connected directly to you, right? So you would get that level 1, 5% on the wholesale volume of what they order from the company. So what we're doing tonight is we're not just talking about social selling. We're talking about this compensation plan that has made more millionaires than anything. We've made more millionaires than any other company I'm aware of. There's over 1,500 people that have earned more than $1 million in Nu Skin. There's walls covered with these people. And it's crazy. And every 3 days we create a new one, and we've paid $10 billion in commissions since we started. Actually, it's more than that now, and pay nearly $1 billion a year in commissions. And, so, we're not insignificant. And this compensation plan is literally a license to print money. It was written by distributors for distributors. So, when somebody connects somebody else to the business, then that's their level 1. And so that'd be the first person that's on a second generation. Now, as a distributor, just a distributor, remember we're talking titles, you would not get paid on that. So as that grows out, you don't get paid, you get zero on any of that as it grows out until you are an executive distributor. Once you become an executive distributor, and executive distributors make thousands of dollars a month because they get paid on group volume. Now, I probably should have changed this presentation. It's group sales volume. If you're using the app, if you're using the My New Skin app, you'll see that these bonuses are separated for you to see your level 1 bonus and your group sales bonus. So we're going to put that box around there so that you can kind of see the group that you're laying out. You're going to sponsor people, they're going to sponsor people, so on, so on, so on. They tell two friends and they tell two friends and they tell two friends. If you're old enough to remember that commercial, I'm really sorry for you because you're really old. And so, once you become an executive distributor, then you get paid. You continue to get paid your retail profit. You continue to get paid your level 1 bonus, but you add another commission called a group sales bonus. We call it a circle group bonus or an executive bonus. And this gets international. We're seamless. It can go all over the place, bounce all over the world. Wow, I've got some bad stuff in here. Actually, some of this is really good. Chile is already open. I pulled an older version of this, so kind of disregard the middle of this. Although it's pretty accurate. The U.S. is certainly underdeveloped. We should be $1 billion company here. We do a couple $100 million. I believe social selling will be the trigger to really get us going. Europe's obviously underdeveloped. South America is, really new. China is underdeveloped. It's a little more complex. You do need to jump some hoops to be involved there. There's other huge markets that are coming soon: Brazil, India, and then there's our incredible pipeline of products. You're going to see that take place over this next summer as you see other products come into the marketplace. And there's teams that are doing unbelievable things. This is a shameless plug for that Social Success Summit that's coming up in July. If you don't have your ticket yet, you got to get one and be there. We're at such a crossroads, and I can see it so clearly. Blake mentioned it already. The before social world, we call it the BS world. It still exists and it still works. But the social media part of this just works so much faster. It's not that the business doesn't work the old way it does. It's just that this just is so fast. It's so frictionless. And Blake, speak to that a little bit. Just kind of tell everybody what's happened in your business in the last 10 weeks. It seems
right. So comparing, my experience to, 7 years ago, when I first tried Nu Skin to the last 10 weeks is a pretty good example. So my first 2 years in Nu Skin, I decided I was going to do this. I decided I was going to do it full time. I don't know if you guys actually knew that I actually did do it full time. And in those 2 years, I sponsored 40 people, and I was really excited about it. Actually, I thought that was, a good amount of, traction. I made some decent money. I didn't make great money the first time around with Nu Skin. Ended up quitting, kind of fluctuated through life as an executive or whatever. And then 10 weeks ago, when we started adopting this social selling, in the first month, we added about 350 distributors to our group. And those 350 distributors produced a lot of volume. We did a lot of great things. We made ourselves a really nice paycheck, qualified for that South Africa trip. And then this month, we've already done more volume than we did last month. And we've also added an extra 420 distributors on top of the 350 that we had last month. So we're just under 800 new distributors in this group right now that we're working with. There's a lot of you that are, going to see this, that are active in the group. But comparing that, in 10 weeks versus 2 years, we've added 800 distributors versus 40. So just to, reemphasize that this isn't just about selling toothpaste. It's not about making $10 a tube. Even if that's all it was, it would be one of the best opportunities on social media that's out there, even with just that. So just having that aside.
You work in social media every day. So
if you're in social media, otherwise you're going to have to be like a drop shipper. You're going to make a fraction of a percentage of sales. You're going to make so little that you can't even advertise your product and still make money. You only make money on reorders in that world. Or you're going to have a unique product. You're going to have to fund it, have a warehouse. You're going to have to store it. You're going to have to develop it. You're going to have to do all these other things. You're going to have to act as your own business. So this is really the fastest, most seamless way to make money on social media. And that's just as a distributor. So moving into the executive section of the business, just as an executive, we made thousands of dollars just as an executive, not as a leader of executives yet. And then moving into that whole adapting the leadership part of this and creating additional leaders in your business is really where you can set yourself financially free.
Awesome, Blake. And so really quick, I'm going to go through qualification. It's not really in this presentation. It's designed to be a summary. But to become an executive, you basically need to build a team that does 4,500 points or 4,500 wholesale dollars of volume. And normally in the old world, we would do that over 3 months. And one of the requirements was time. You couldn't speed track. And, we're seeing a lot of speed tracking now. And that actually was not a feature. You had to be in the business at least 90 days because there was a maturation process that had to take place. There was stuff you had to learn. And so it'd be, LOI month and then a qualification month and then a second qualification month. It'd be 1,000 points, 1,500 and then 200. And that track for somebody very part-time is still available. But in social media, we're seeing people just go right through those numbers like they're not even there and become executives in a very, very much more streamlined process and start then the next month to get paid on their whole team. Now, it's really important to become an executive. And you mentioned the South Africa trip. In order to accumulate success trip points, you must be an executive. That is a requirement to start to get those points. So if you're close, say you've got 500 points right now, before the end of this month, you just got to trust us and get your LOI filed. Get into qualification. Get yourself in a position where you can speed track because there's some bonus pools that are associated with actually being in qualification. Now, if you're within striking distance of becoming an executive, let's say you've got 2,500 points right now, then double your efforts. Really go out and really recruit a lot of people, start getting people started. We're seeing that if you start one person a day, you're going to do between 5,000 and 8,000 points of volume in a month. If you're starting 2 people a day, you're going to do 12, 15,000. If you're starting 3 people a day, you're going to do way more than that, 15, 20,000 points. Now, those correlations are loose, but they're starting to appear. And so, that gives you kind of a benchmark. Remember, these people are starting for free. And you've got the 3 PDFs, you've got our YouTube channel. There's a lot of good information. My caution is don't use too much of it. Just get people to post so that they see the incredible demand for the product and they start moving product and making money. And then they're going to want to know everything, right? As soon as you start making money, you just want to know more. It's just the way it is. So I'm really spending a lot of time, Blake, on the front of this because what we've seen is that you made unbelievable money just by laying out a team. So think about this. There's like 800 distributors in your group. As of right now, if all of them work 1 hour a day, you're working 800 hours a day. I mean, that's the value is at the back end of the plan is it's what John Paul Getty said when he said he'd rather have 1% of 100 people's efforts. Well, there's no way you can work 800 hours in a day. But if your distributors just worked an hour, you'd be receiving the benefit of 800 hours, right? I mean, how can you beat the efficiency of a distribution network? You can't, right? You're not handling all that product. How much product did you handle last month? Actually, in your
That's a good question. I mean, we retailed enough. So, I mean, probably $2,000 of product. We retail a lot.
You handled physically at wholesale $2,000 of product.
Personally. Well, we retailed enough to make that much. So
you handled about $1,000 worth of product. at wholesale, and you marked it up to 2,000, kept $1,000.
Well, we profited 2,000, so we actually retailed that much in last month, but it doesn't matter. I mean, what you're saying is it
Well,
makes
it kind of does, because what I'm trying to point out is that your group did, way tens of thousands of dollars more, but you only physically handled a little bit of
yeah,
that.
fraction of it. Yeah, small fraction of the actual volume.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to help people get their hands around how this works. So,
Yeah,
the company's shipping a lot of products which you're being paid on, and that's what I'm talking about.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the next deal is where you become a leader. Now we're going to focus on Blue Diamond just because it's not really the top of the plan. It's nobody really wants to be a Blue Diamond. It's the highest level where you maximize the compensation plan, but every Blue Diamond wants to be a team elite because they want to go on the big fancy trip, which was in Barcelona this year, Rome last year. Unbelievable trip. You guys went to Rome with us as guests. And, these trips are pretty amazing trips, right?
Hmm.
So most Blue Diamonds, the reason I like to point it out this way is Blue Diamond is not a place where people stay. So the average volumes or the average incomes actually, there's no real big pooling. I think it's really unfair when network marketing companies talk about their very, very top distributors. Nu Skin doesn't do that. They never publish team elite incomes ever. You'll never see them. They don't talk about them because there's people like me that have been team elite for 20 years. It's just not even fair for me to talk about it because I've been there so long that my business has matured at a level that's different, if that makes sense. So I like talking about Blue Diamond. Now, let's say you had a Blue Diamond making average income. Okay, I figure each executive is worth about $150 in income a point, or a piece. So if you're going to make $50,000 a month, you would need 333 executives in your team. Now, that's a lot of people to mature through a compensation plan. If you were doing that yourself, but you're not. What you're doing now is you're going and you're trying to find 12 executives wide. Now, I'm not talking about distributors. You're probably going to need to have a couple hundred distributors to have 12 of them stick as executives. Now, if you had 12 executives, there's nothing in the world that's going to stop them from figuring out that they can make thousands of dollars a month as an executive, and they're going to want to become executives. Anybody in the sound of my voice that's thinking is going to want to be an executive distributor. Okay. If they're really looking and they want to get paid on their team because these teams roll out so fast. So, if you had 12, those people are going to go find a certain number of executives. In this example, we're going to say that those 12 are going to find 2 each. Seems fair, right, Blake?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not going to happen like that. You're going to end up with one big leg or two big organizations filled with executives. So we're going to call these generations. In the front end of the plan, and this is where people, we need almost like a network marketing 101 because people get confused. They'll go out in the marketplace and some company X will say, we pay 8 levels. Well, yeah, they do. They pay levels. They don't pay generations. They don't pay on teams of volume. And some of these teams will have 200, 300. Your team had 400 executives, 400 distributors on who knows how many levels, and it was one generation of volume. So this is where you really start to have to think about what's happening here. And this is why Nu Skin's compensation plan is so lucrative, is that it's going to take 3 to 5 years to mature this. But when the business matures out, let's say 12 becomes, 2 on each level, you'd have 24 executives on your second level, 48 on your third, 96 on your fourth. And you start really looking at this and you realize there's more volume and more income on your fourth, fifth, and sixth level than there is in the rest of the plan. The point being with the Nu Skin compensation plan is when you've built it and it matures, it becomes a willable, transferable asset that produces real walkaway passive recurring income. Now, I am the personification of that. I've spent the last 10 years pretty much completely retired. I mean, honestly, what I've been doing in the last 10 years, you could never call work. You could call it golf. You could call it, being retired. You could call it, but you couldn't call it golf. You couldn't call it anything but golf. Really, you couldn't, right? I mean, Blake, you lived it. You saw me. You never saw me work, right?
No, never.
Never. And they just piled money in my bank account every single month on the 20th. We just changed that to the 15th. So, you can see that, on your sixth generation in a 2x2 format, you'd have 384 executives on your sixth level. That's way more than 333. And as you total this thing up, you can see the incomes as it matures out. Now, why would we do this? Why would I do an example like this, and why would I plant this seed? Okay, because this is different than anything else that's out there. Every company out there is going to want to say they pay better. They don't. Okay, none of them. They don't pay as much. They don't treat their distributors like we do. They're just not paying attention to this. How did Nu Skin become a $2.5 billion company? We pay our distributors more than anybody else. And that's just an industry fact. Everybody wants to be us. And right now, where we're making this switch from direct selling to social selling, and then you take this compensation plan, man, I got to tell you, you can completely change your life. And I'm talking about, you can turn this into, you can turn it into total freedom. And, so really understand this thing. This thing is so powerful. And this is just an example. I'm living proof. I have more executives than this. Does this happen? Yeah, it happens. Does it take a while? Yeah, it does. Give yourself 3 to 5 years. Give yourself a good solid 6 months to get yourself in a position where you're really living on this. Maybe those are old BS numbers because this happens awful fast. But keep on keeping on. There's going to be kind of some walls. There's going to be stuff you need to leap over. You're going to sell a certain amount of product in your Facebook, and then you're going to need to learn how to recruit. You're going to need to learn to talk to people. You're going to need to learn to reach out to people and tell them what you're doing and use your story. You're going to need to learn some skills. And that's why we run events, because then you're able to get around successful distributors and learn from them and pick up things from their story that's going to get in your subconscious, that's going to help you move forward. The point is you can move forward. You can turn this into a career. So, Blake, just kind of wrap it up for us. We've gone a little long, and I've got another appointment. Gosh, we've gone clear to 10:30, which I didn't mean to do.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap up, I would say that this is something that we can condense, we can simplify. It's something that you may need to have, run by a one-on-one. The really important thing that if you're new in the business, first and foremost, I think that above all else, if you're your first day here in the business, if you're someone that's qualifying, trying to finish your LOI or become an executive, regardless of where you're at on the compensation plan, the number one most important thing that you need to do right now is get a ticket to that event in July. Above all else, because if you decide right now, no matter where you're at in the compensation plan or with the business, no matter what you know about what's going on, if you're at that event, it's going to change your life. It's going to change your ability with this business, and it's going to help you to move through the compensation plan a lot quicker, no matter where you're at. Second, I would say we're in the last week here of the month. If you're close to your LOI, if you're close to executive, if you don't know where you're at, talk with your upline, set a goal, and accomplish it before the end of the month. And lastly, if you haven't friended me on Facebook, if you want to talk with me, if you want to talk with anybody in the group, I still have a few couple thousand friends slots left. I'm looking to fill those up. I'd love to have you add me. And I'd love to talk with you. So those first 3 things: buy a ticket, set a goal. Let's get you to that goal by the end of the month.
Beautiful, Blake. And I got to apologize. I do. I overtalk stuff because I come from the old world. And, I'm going to get better at it. I'm still knocking rust off. I think everybody needs to understand that honestly, I haven't kept a to-do list or a calendar in 10 years. I've lived in slippers. I have tan lines to prove it. I'm really trying pretty hard to be of value, and hopefully that's happening. Sincerely, I'm only doing this because one, I want to help Blake build a business, and two, it's just fun. It's my first love, and what we're doing right now has the ability to really change a lot of lives. So, hopefully this video will help out. It's a little long. We're gonna do a really really, really short version of the compensation plan here in the next day or so. We used to have a 4-minute one and we lost it. We deleted it off of YouTube, which is heartbreaking. But we will recreate that 4-minute comp plan, and you got to get people to watch it. They need to understand that the little money is the money that they're making selling paste, and it's great money. The big money is in building a distribution organization. So,
All
Blake,
right.
thanks for being on tonight. You were ready to pinch hit for me. I got stuck in Salt Lake, and it worked out. So,
We're good to go. No
okay.
problem.
All right. Talk to you
All right.
soon.
Thanks, Dad.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.